State Senator J.D. Mesnar from District 13 here for another legislative update. It's been a little while, in part because we've been at a bit of a standstill. The governor issued a moratorium on bill signings some time ago because she wanted to focus on this issue impacting the developmentally disabled community. And I'm going to explain what this issue was, and it just led to a bill being just passed by the legislature. But it did also include some serious disagreement between the governor and the legislature because of decisions that were unilaterally made. So let me take a step back and give a little bit of the background. During COVID, the federal government authorized a program, and they agreed that they would fund the entire thing to help families dealing with who have kids in the household that are developmentally disabled. Now, normally they would get external services based on the assessment, the severity, the issues they need help with. There's an assessment done, an allotment of hours to handle different areas, whether it be speech therapy or any number of things are assessed, and they would go and they would find an external provider to cover this. Well, during COVID, obviously the world was turned upside down, and so the feds said, we're actually going to allow parents to fulfill that role if they go through the proper training and become an actual caregiver. They can be a parent as a caregiver to their child. And we'll actually cover all the funds. Usually there's a state federal matching system, but they were going to cover all of the costs. So there's kind of an incentive for states to adopt this program. And it was a relatively small program. Not a whole lot of folks used it. And it was going to come to an end about a year ago or so. The feds said we're no longer going to fund this type of arrangement. And this led to last year in the budget a disagreement between the governor and the legislature over whether to continue it. But ultimately the negotiations concluded with, we're not going to continue this program. There was some discomfort with this idea of parents being paid to care for their kids, even if it was for this specific type of activity and help that they needed. And we want to go back to the old way, the way that it existed prior to COVID. And we agreed on that in last year's budget. However, the governor did decide on her own to go ahead and ask for a waiver at the federal level to continue this program and to fund it. And unfortunately for her, the funding was not the small few $1 million she said it would be, which maybe she figured she could allocate other resources within the DD budget to handle that. It actually ballooned to like 15 times that amount, tens of millions of dollars. And then because she took from other pots of money in the DD, broader DD world, it created a situation where we were going to run out of money for the entire DD community before the end of the current fiscal year. So suffice it to say, we were irate that she would do this unilaterally. It was not part of the agreement from last year. And so there's been a lot of frustration with that. And then we know that the DD community is sort of the collateral damage in the midst of this issue. And we were not wanting to leave folks high and dry. And so thus began tense negotiations between the governor and the legislature, and ultimately led to a bill that was just passed, which was not a great bill from my perspective, but does sort of solve the issue, getting us to the end of the fiscal year. Hopefully moving forward, because of some things we included in the bill, we'll make sure that that there are guardrails on this program, that parents who are meeting a real need, some though might try to take advantage. We had some stories of this happening where they were getting paid to just do parent things, and that's not what this program is about. So it's about striking that right balance, parents as caregivers meeting a real need, and also making sure that they're not taking advantage of the program. Because we did see in the last year and a half, just skyrocketing interest in this program, which is why it became so expensive and a hard issue to deal with. So that's really high level. It's even more complicated than I've described it. Hopefully the solution we put forward, which had some give from both sides, will be helpful to the DD community, getting us to the end of the current fiscal year, which is just a couple months from the end. And then we're going to be talking about it again in the budget we're still working on for the next fiscal year that begins July 1st. So stay tuned for that. Until then, that's all for this update. God bless.